to be a really interesting discussion about what makes the perfect getaway. And to help us explore the current landscape and what the future may hold for accessible holidays, we have a truly expert panel, brimming, they tell me, with wisdom, experience and insight. I truly believe that, actually. And I'm going to invite them to introduce themselves now. And I'm going to do that alphabetically, so I'm going to start first with you, please, Angus.
Thank you very much, Gregory. Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here today. My name's Angus Drummond, and I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Limitless Travel, and we specialise in accessible holidays and tours for people with disabilities. And we're unique in the nature that all of our holidays are small group holidays, so there's companionship and other disabled travellers going away. And also we take care support on each of our trips, so that any traveller is completely supported from start to finish, meaning they're incredibly well looked after.
Fantastic, thank you. Over to you, please, Anna Ruth.
Hi everyone, I'm Anna Ruth. I'm wearing a navy suit and I've got red hair and glasses. I'm Accessibility Manager at London Gatwick Airport, so I work with the Assistance Service as well as accessibility projects and projects for the experience of disabled passengers in the airport.
Lovely, thank you. Over to you, please, Emma.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Emma Partlow. I'm Accessibility and Inclusion Manager at Transreport. You may know us best for our flagship product, passenger assistance, rolled out across the UK rail network and moving into the aviation space, which is really exciting. Audio description, I'm a white female with dark brown hair, wearing a black dress, black tights and black shiny shoes. At my feet is my assistance dog Luna, a yellow Labrador wearing her red and yellow working vest.
Lovely, thank you very much. Lucy, please.
Hello everybody, I'm Lucy Edwards. My pronouns are she, her. My audio description today. I am a red-haired lady. It's long, like just below my shoulders. I'm wearing a blush pink top, white cardigan, black skirt. It's a test for myself because I'm blind. Black tights and black crocs. And at my feet is Miss Molly, my guide dog. I am a travel broadcaster for the BBC, and also my antics are also uploaded to social media. I own my own business. I'm a director of my company, Sunrise Entertainment Limited, where I consult with brands, Fortune 500 companies about accessibility, not only in travel but other places too.
Wonderful, thank you very much. And please, Marina.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. My name is Marina Snellenberg. I'm the Accessibility Manager at TUI UK and I drive the Accessible Holiday Strategy from that position. I'm a white woman, I'm blonde, and I'm wearing all black today.
Thank you very much indeed. Well, without further ado, let's move on to our first question, which is, how is the advertising industry changing to include disabled people? And Lucy, I wondered what was your take on this, please?
Fab question. I think, before the pandemic, I know, dreaded word, we're coming out the gate with that word, guys. I think before the pandemic, I didn't see as much representation. For me now, in the advertising industry, there's a lot we're seeing actual adverts with disabled people on them, and then the products that they're promoting are, truly accessible. Universal design. What I would say, there's still a long way to go, but I have done campaigns with travel companies, and they pride themselves in being accessible in their campaigns. I think a standout one for me was the one they did with Simply to Denmark, and it was up to me how I advertised Denmark, what the metro system was like how, from start to finish, what was my experience as a blind person and as a blind consumer, because at the end of the day, nothing about us without us is a massive hashtag online that you see in the disabled community. And also advertising on social media definitely is moving towards more authenticity. We always talk about authentic practice you know, and you know, people don't want to see a shiny, happy image of like someone in designer clothes. Like, that is not reality. It's not the reality of my world, let alone, you know, my audiences as well. And I just think like it's just not real life, and we don't want to see that anymore. So yeah, I think brands are like actually taking note.
So brands switching off, more authenticity, is that your take on it as well, Angus?
Yeah, I think really to echo Lucy's point about social media, and I think when you look at some of the more modern streams of advertising, whereby one is able to be much more reactive and produce content more readily available, then you are seeing a much greater representation of disabled people. However, I think when you look at some of the more traditional streams, it is quite far behind. If I talk from the travel industry, because that's where my expertise lies, you know, January is a peak season for travel, and this year a lot of the mainstream travel businesses launched their travel adverts. And there was a fascinating article in TTG Media, the leading travel publication, talking about diversity and inclusion in these adverts. And what they were celebrating was the high level of diversity and inclusion, but what was distinctly lacking from most of the mainstream travel adverts was any disability representation. And without pointing too many fingers, but you know, P&O, for example, is a mainstream cruise provider that cater a lot to the elderly and disabled community. Within their advert, there was no representation whatsoever of disabled people. And I think, you know, in 2024, that's quite frankly shocking. So, whilst a huge amount of progress has been made in some areas, there are some aspects of the advertising industry that are really falling behind.
Thank you. So, Emma, authenticity, some good progress being made in social media, mainstream media falling behind. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. I think all of the things we've just heard, representation is on the rise. We are seeing more disabled people. We can and should be doing, and we really need a diverse range of audiences. It's not marketing material. And think that our job is done. There is still scope, so much growth and so much more opportunity to engage with a diverse group of disabled people. Bringing one or two people to the room is just simply not good enough in 2024.
Yeah, I think that's all of these points have been very good. I think that last word about avoiding tokenism, it can only damage the brand if that's done. But with the advertising industry now, some of it starting to catch up, Marina. How is, once disabled people are on holiday, how is the universal design shaping industry, and how do businesses need to ensure that they're truly being disabled, not the tokenism that Emma was indicating?
I think universal design has allowed for the business case for accessibility to shift from the legal requirement, you have to do it, to it's the right thing to do, to actually it makes a lot of commercial sense to design universally for every single experience from the beginning, because that way you're appealing as many customers as possible, so you're not discriminating in any shape. And the things that businesses can do to be more inclusive from the start is just really have a very strong, very focused strategy for accessibility, something that has clear objectives, that has clear KPIs, something that all of the internal business can relate to and can work towards, and something that customers can see from the outside and can relate to as well. So at TUI, for example, the accessible holiday strategy has been in the shape that it is now for 2 years. We've been working on accessibility for many years before, but in its current form, it's been 2 years. And the progress that we've been able to deliver and the return that we've seen already in these 2 years has been dramatic. So we know we're on a good course by appealing to as many people as possible.
And that's a really interesting point you raised there, which I hadn't considered before, that in terms of a business needing to ensure they're being inclusive and in advertising to an external audience, would-be customers, but there's also this need to communicate internally. Anna, what's your take on this? How do you think businesses need to ensure they're being inclusive?
Yeah, I think with air travel in particular, something we saw after the pandemic was that disabled people or assisted passengers actually returned to travel a lot quicker than the rest of the traveling public. You know, people want to travel, disabled people want to travel, and I think perhaps what happened, and I'm not sure, you know, but I think perhaps what happened after the pandemic was that, you know, people had felt trapped inside, right, that they had had a very challenging time, and travel opens up a lot of doors for people to enjoy a holiday or to get a new job or that kind of thing. And so I think, you know, there's the business case, right, but there's also the moral case that we have a big part to play in people's lives, that people want to travel for all sorts of reasons, and that's true, and we've definitely seen that proven since the pandemic. That's true of disabled people as well, perhaps more than ever. So yeah, I think it's really important that businesses and particularly the travel industry really focuses on accessibility, because that's what the customer base wants, right? And that's what's going to make travel enjoyable for as many people as possible.
I think that's another good point, isn't it, about how what's right commercially and what's right morally, those things are often presented as being in opposition to each other, but they're not. Often,
and I really truly believe that the only way change is going to happen is when people wake up to the commercial opportunity that disabled people represent. You know, people can talk about change and want to do change or legislate change, but that will never go far enough. Only when people realise about the commercial power that disabled people have will change really happen. You know, at the end of the day, we are not disabled people. We are people first and foremost. You know, we are not disabled consumers. We are consumers. We have disposable income and money to spend that want to go on trips, so that when the service is, you know, accessibility is as inclusive as any other service, be it you treating families or luxury clientele or young backpackers, you know, whenever accessibility is treated as the same bracket as any other group of consumers, then that's when the service will change and be incorporated, because inclusive, you know, accessibility by design is the holy grail. And when it is done well, it's incredible. I've been to hotels where the accessibility is built into the design and you just have such a seamless experience. It takes away that stress and the hassle and the worry. But too many times we are having to sacrifice and compromise between a good service or an accessible service. We shouldn't have to choose between the two. They should go hand in hand together.
that's right, and I think that accessibility, if you get it right for disabled people, you stand a big chance of getting it right for everyone.
Exactly, yeah.
So, okay, we've spoken about advertising industry slowly changing. We've spoken about what businesses need to do to become more inclusive. Let's say we're looking for an accessible holiday. Emma, what's the best way to prepare? How do you do it?
Great question. Everybody sitting in this room, I'm sure it's not lost on them that researching and being aware of what you need before going away is so important. I'm sure I'm not alone in having to spend hours researching accessible accommodation, and a really key one for me, and I can share and draw upon a personal example from last year. I was flying to San Francisco. I spent 12 hours on the phone booking my assistance, only to turn up at the check-in desk and be told I wasn't in the system. That isn't good enough. We've said it's 2024. As a disabled person that regularly travels, I need to be able to communicate what I need from an organisation in advance of that trip in a way that is efficient and makes sense to me. That research is huge. It's a huge part of planning an accessible getaway. And I'm really proud to be part of a company that's making movements to make this process easier for people. Having the right information means that people can best support disabled customers. It's as simple as that. So research is a really key one, and ensuring that my assistance is booked, particularly when I'm flying. Travelling with an assistance dog, there are tons of pieces of documentation, paperwork. I've got a huge folder that gives my own medical folder a run for its money that you need to take with you and present in its physical form at the check-in desk. It would be brilliant to look to the future and have this streamlined. All of these are things that I consider when thinking about an accessible getaway, it starts way before that check-in desk. It starts weeks and months before the trip.
Yeah, I totally hear you. It is, everybody I think appreciates here, it's a massive undertaking. And as you were talking, I was having a look around the room and lots of people nodding because you live with this reality every day. How many times have we been to places where flat access in theory has been 2 steps up in practice, or where the accessible toilet has been anything but? And so I really think you hit the nail on the head. But you mentioned flying, and I'm interested, Hannah Ruth, as to what your take is there, being located as you are at Gatwick. What's your view you can help us with?
Yeah, I think in terms of preparing for travel, there's a lot of things that passengers have to think about, like you say, when they're planning their holiday. They've got to pick the most accessible hotel, and they've got to book assistance and all that sort of thing. And so I hate to say here's more things to think about, but here's more things to think about. I think it's very easy, particularly, and I say this from my own experience when I first started traveling without my parents. It's very easy to think about what the perfect journey is. So I'm booking assistance assuming that my flight's going to be on an air bridge, because every other holiday I went on when I was a child, the flight had been on an air bridge, because they were long haul flights and that sort of thing. Or I book assistance assuming that my flight isn't going to get delayed, and that's not going to have an impact on the needs that I have. I'm much more mobile at the start of the day than I am at the end. Or I pack my bag assuming that I'm going to have it returned when I get to the end of my journey, or that it's not going to get lost. And I think there's a lot of that forward planning, and that's really challenging, and I think that's something that the industry is really looking to, how do we simplify it so that forward planning isn't so difficult? But the message that we kind of want to give to, for now, to really think about your access needs in that detail, and maybe you only need to do it once. What would you do if your aircraft had stairs at the side rather than an air bridge? What would you can you pack all of your medication in your hand luggage, which you are allowed to do, by the way, including if it's liquid, to make sure that you always have it on you, regardless of what happens to your bag? Think about your access needs in terms of what the worst day of your health is, not the best day. We all want to picture our holiday really positively, but then those kind of access failures almost put the biggest damper on it of anything, in my experience. And I just kind of reflecting back on some of those first times that I travelled by air, I think if I'd almost planned as if everything was going to go wrong, everything would have felt a lot more like it was going right. And yeah, we've got a whole list of questions on our webpage around those kinds of questions that passengers can maybe think about when they're booking assistance or when they're getting ready for travel, just in the context of getting on an aircraft and some of the challenges that are posed there. And I'm sure there's so much more for all the other parts of travel that other people can talk to. But yeah, really kind of think about some of those things and how you're booking your assistance, and reach out to your airport or your airline if you have any questions about those. We're always happy to answer questions that are like, what would happen if, or what's available for this, if that's going to help you, choose exactly what it is you need to have the best journey that you can have.
I think that's really helpful, and this emphasis on forward planning. In my experience, I find also that I need to limit how much I drink the day before I travel. So I don't want to give you all now a phobia, but I'm always worried that I'm not going to make the toilet in time, because how far are the toilets from some of these departure gates? You see there's just no more toilets past this point, and I'm immediately.
What the others have said as well, it's so hard to plan. I'm always taking up my hubby's liquids, because I'm like, well, I need all my eye drops and I need my antidepressants, but I also need this face mask and an under eye mask. And so yeah, he doesn't mind, bless him. I just pack them for him. But I think ultimately, when you have a guide dog, it is hard to travel, especially when we came out of the EU. I used to have a little doggy passport for Miss Molly, because she was a part of the overall body. I'm sure your assistant's dog. But now you have to pay like 200 quid to get her there, and then if she's over in a country for like more than 5 days, you have to find a vet in that country, and then it's like, how do you take her food on board and scanning it through assistance? So then me and Ollie are usually, that's my hobby, translating like Swedish and Dutch into some sort of different thing to be like, so what's the address for our hotel? Like, how do we get on this like dog website? Or like, how close are we to like a dog shop? To get Miss Molly on. So yeah, and then it's also when you land, like obviously learning the routes, and Miss Molly is amazing like that, and it really does depend who you are and what, you know, your relationship with your own guide dog. Your guide dog might be good at just doing routes at home, but because Miss Molly was matched to me, like she's able to, you know, not get frightened on flights and have that, but there's been a lot of planning and resilience within my travel experience, and I just kind of just say to myself, like, if it does go wrong, then you know, I've got everything I need in my hand luggage, and if I need to buy some pants, then there we go. But I think also ditto to like a good experience isn't usually an accessible experience. You go to all these like bougie hotels, like sometimes, say if you go to the Hilton or whatever, they're great cookies, by the way, I really do recommend. But you know, when you go to these, I love going to the Premier Inn like way more, because it's just a better experience for me and Ollie and Miss Molly all together. Because you know, you get all these touch screens and all this stuff that just usually doesn't have a screen reader on it, and I can't do it independently, and I do to this day still have to give up my independence of like trying to like scan the like usual like the key card on the door and all this stuff. So I do really rely on Miss Molly and Ollie like when I'm doing my travel docs to kind of get when I get back to the hotel. Yeah.
It's strange, isn't it, how we began this conversation about the universal design, and we've now touched on some of the innovations in inverted commas, such as touch screens or putting your card against the door, which is considered by others to be good design, but actually is not. Marina, I wonder if we could come to you about, you know, there are lots of strategies about the best ways to prepare. How can travel companies help ensure that needs are met when disabled people are travelling? Do you have any suggestions about that?
I think the key is information. So providing those wishing to go on holiday with as much information as possible, detailed, precise, accurate, up to date, constantly. And we have seen it. We've partnered with Accessible, who produce detailed access guides for our hotels at TUI. And the amount of detail that goes into these access guides allows customers to make an informed decision. It removes the burden on us as TUI to tell you these are accessible hotels or these are not accessible hotels, because we don't have to make that decision at all. It's down to the customer, to the person looking for an accessible holiday, to decide if that information, if that hotel is suitable to their own particular needs. So information is absolutely key for us, and we believe that actually is the person that has the access need, the one that can decide if something is suitable or not.
Yeah, I think that's really important and helpful. Lucy, what do you think travel companies can do? We've just been talking about what disabled people are doing. On the other side of the conversation, travel companies heard from Marina about what TUI are doing. Is there anything that you would add to that?
So much. When you land on your website, accessible images, alt text images. You know, Navilens is massive in the blind space at the minute. You know, it's all over Euston signage. Navilens is a code that can basically be printed on packaging and signposts that I can scan as a blind person, like traditional barcodes. I'm always like twisting the baked bean can to be like, well, obviously I don't know it's a baked bean can when I'm twisting it, because I'm trying to scan the barcode to know what it is in my hand. But Navilens codes kind of take that away. It looks like geometric shapes, and it's a free app that you can download on your phone. It can basically be placed on anything, is what I'm trying to say. And you know, once you scan it, you've got a whole wide range of things you can put on there, links, like everything. So that would be amazing. Just in all, you know, in conferences like this, you know, we've got one just by the main stage that's told me how to get here. and it helps you navigate around busy environments, especially when you have an assistance dog that, you know, wants to shoreline, i.e. like go to the extreme left of an environment and go along building lines. You know, these codes are just so important. You know, when you're going into hotel rooms, there needs to be braille, large print, or something you can scan on your phone to make it accessible. Accessibility in universal design is like I see it as modularity. You know, when you see in the tech industry, you know, my iPhone, it's had a screen reader since 2009. I became blind in 2012, so I've never known my iPhone is any different. And I don't know if you guys have seen that advert when, you know, you assume that we can't do something, so we don't, by the Down Syndrome Society. I think it's absolutely epic. It's on my stories on Instagram right now. And I think, you know, it's so right. Like, if people who are designing in travel companies assume that we don't want to do something, or assume that we're not having these experiences as disabled consumers, then they just won't be there, which means we don't do them. And your assumption is right, because we can't do it. So yeah, I don't want to have to, as I say, like, not have braille tactile maps, not be able to do things, and like surrender. Like, my husband is absolutely amazing, but he doesn't have to keep doing everything for me, and I don't envisage like a life where that has to happen. You know, I want to be like, in 10, 12, 15 years, this is what we run our company and consult these brands. Like, I want change, and we want to see it now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that as disabled people, we are well and truly versed in having to constantly push back against the limiting expectations that other people place upon us. And so I'm loath to add another burden on. But there's a thing being run at the moment by the Shore Trust, which is talking about demanding the change. And I think, unfortunately, it does fall to us that if there is something that's not being done for us, we need to demand it, because people aren't going to give it to us from the goodness of their hearts. But Angus, I mean, your business is all about empowering disabled people to travel and to have that life-affirming freedom of travel. What does your company do to give disabled people confidence when they're travelling?
It's a really important question, and we always talk about confidence. And in many ways, you know, confidence is the biggest blocker for people being able to go away. It's not necessarily accessibility, it's within your own, you know, mindset or your belief in your ability to travel. And I think that a huge part of the preparation for going on holiday is about that mindset, and how you can develop that mindset in order to give yourself the confidence. And we often find it Limitless that a lot of our customers, well, in fact, the majority of our customers just simply haven't been on holiday for 5, maybe 10 years, you know, or certainly haven't been on holiday since they first became disabled, because they are very scared and apprehensive about what they're going to face. So the way we overcome that confidence is really just to sort of, you know, talk to people and just provide them with that support. And a huge part of the journey that people go through before they get away is having that support and building that trust up with them. But I think sometimes a huge part of the confidence is just to know that a service exists and that people are out there ready to support you. So we often use, you know, case studies from our other customers that have travelled beforehand to help explain to our guests, you know, what the sorts of experiences that they'll get away. And sometimes it can take a couple of years from somebody first inquiring before they actually build up that confidence to go away and travel. And maybe their first trip will be a 5-day break in the UK, whereby they are petrified when they arrive because of what's going to have in store for them. By the end of the trip, they're bursting with confidence, brimming with confidence, and booking a trip to go on a safari to South Africa the following year. So once that confidence piece is overcome, it can be incredibly powerful for people, and that's something that we really work on with our guests.
Yeah, that rings absolutely true to me, and I think it's also a force multiplier, isn't it? Because once you get confident in doing anything that you previously felt unconfident about, in this case holiday, the fact that you've managed to do it gives you confidence to try other things.
Okay.
And I was struck by what you said there, Angus, as well, that, you know, there are people out there who are willing to help. And Anna Ruth, you referred to that in the context of Gatwick, that you know, there are services out there. You said in our answer to a previous question, you know, give us a call, get in touch, and there was a page on your website. But what do you think, if we just sharpen the focus for a moment to talk about positive airport experience. What do you aim for your passengers going through Gatwick?
Yeah, I think when we talk about airport accessibility, we always talk about the assistance service. And my personal goal in life is to stop talking about the assistance service, because that's great, right? You know, that really helps people get on the aircraft. It helps people find their way A to B. But it's not the full passenger journey that a non-disabled passenger is having. You know, a non-disabled passenger is enjoying the restaurants and the retail experience, or they're going to the lounge, or they're doing all of these other things. And the airport should be accessible enough that, just like when anyone goes anywhere else, people feel that they have the capability to do that without worrying that they're going to miss assistance or miss their flight. That's something we've really worked on at Gatwick in the past, so kind of moving away from the model where assistance takes you straight to the gate. We now have an assistance lounge in each terminal, which is where passengers are taken. So if you don't want to walk around the terminal, you've got a much more kind of comfortable central space with food and drink and all that sort of thing available. But if you do want to mobilise around the terminal, you know, or around the departure lounge, sorry, you've got that central point to come back and meet your assistance and know when it's there. And we're going to tell you when that assistance is ready to take you to your flight. And we're going to give you the opportunity to do whatever it is you want to do in the airport. And I think that's something we really want to build upon. How can we do that even more to enable even more passengers to have an independent journey? And I think that's talking about more than just the assistance service. I think that's talking about the design of the airport. I think it's talking about the way that any other service in the airport is run. I think it's talking about what passengers know about the airport, so about the wayfinding. You know, can they find their way without the assistance service having to follow them the whole way there, and that kind of thing. Because really the airport journey is accessible if you can do it independently. And that's not to say that we won't always have the support there, we will. But I would really like passengers who want to travel independently to be able to do so, just like Lisa said.
Well, actually we're talking there about, you know, wanting to do things that not just travel, but wanting to, you know, participate in retail and what have you. I was reminded of one of the first times I travelled with my wheelchair 30 years ago, and they took it off me when I was checking in, and then gave me another wheelchair with someone to push me around. And I was so distraught, I burst into tears, because the idea that I suddenly lost my independence, and I'm glad that those days are behind us. But Emma, you know, what's your view on it? You know, this confidence gap that still exists for many disabled people when it comes to using an airport. What do you think could be done to make it a more positive experience?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really big question, and one that's really topical. I reflect on my own experiences and reflect on the work that my company's done in changing the way people receive assistance on the railway. Prior to using technology, I would have to stand on a platform and give over my medical information to a stranger and ask for support. I really look forward to the day I don't have to do that at a check-in desk. As it stands, I'm not in the system. I'm having to give quite a lot of personal information over whilst there's a queue of people behind me huffing and puffing because I'm holding up the system. When I think about the perfect airport experience, it's to enter, it's that somebody knows I'm coming, they know exactly what I need, and I'm not locked down to an assistance lounge. Lounges are brilliant, but they should absolutely be a choice. I want to have autonomy and to feel empowered in the airport. I think most of us in the room agree that the airport experience is part of the trip that a lot of us really look forward to. Being with family, it's a really fundamental part of the airport experience, and people need to feel empowered and be supported to have that experience in a way that makes sense to them.
The airport experience is part of a holiday. Emma was saying, I think that's actually right with people nodding back. What's your take on it, Lucy?
Yeah, I agree. You know, I often think, oh my gosh, I am terrified. Like, when assistants have left me in like certain countries when I've been travelling on my own, and I don't speak their language, I've been placed into wheelchairs and kind of someone put a sticky note on me saying blind, so I'm like, oh lovely, I've forgotten that I was blind. But I think, you know, it really does kind of speak to the core of you there, where you just feel so like, oh my gosh, how do I get out of this situation? But the advent of technology for me has really changed my perspective and the way I see how independent I am. I wouldn't panic necessarily in that scenario now, as long as I've got internet connection and loads of battery. I will just ring IRA, which is an app that connects me to a sighted trained volunteer. Same with Be My Eyes, and I can get myself out of situations, and it's taught me to be adaptable. It's taught me to be like answer to myself, and if I want to go to the toilet, I'm just going to film around me. I'm going to the blinking toilet. I'm not waiting for people. But it's about having the confidence to do that. But I can sit here and say, oh my god, I'd love an AI suitcase that drops you to every compartment, every shop, and I don't know, described all the makeup to me, and all of the perfume. I would adore that, and I wait for that day where I don't have to be dependent on someone. So yeah.
Well, sure. Angus, as a great entrepreneur, might well come up with that himself at some point.
I reckon.
Marina, from a holiday company point of view, what influence can you bring to bear upon the airport experience?
I think the influence we can bring is that to make sure that we give as many opportunities as possible to customers about to travel, to tell us what type of assistance they're going to need. So if we open up the phone lines, make them free, if we give our British Sign Language users the ability to contact us through Sign Live, for example, or if we are able to give out sunflower lanyards from our TUI shops rather than straight at the airport, if we open up that door earlier and in more spaces, then we encourage more people to do what is called pre-notification. And then I'm sure that then Anna Ruth's team then is very grateful to receive this in advance, because they can plan their workforce, their workload, the way they, and then assistance is more likely to be delivered on time and with quality as well. So our job is to make it easy for customers to tell us what they need, and then our job is then to pass it on to the relevant teams so that assistance can be delivered.
And in fact, I think at this expo, you've got little cards, haven't you, to hand out to people to give them confidence about what to do in order to get good assistance through the airport.
Absolutely. We have our new, not new anymore, but a free phone number to ring our assisted travel team, which is a dedicated specialized team that will help you book any, not just your accessible holidays, but also your accessibility requests for the airport. So.
Thank you. Great. Now, we've got 3 minutes left, but there's one question that I can't miss off, but you're going to have to give it as punchy and as pithily as you can. What would be the ultimate vision for accessible travel in the future? Angus?
I'll try and be as punchy. It's a very interesting question, because it's my life vision. I set up Limitless Travel based upon my own experience of travelling with a disability after I was diagnosed with muscular dystrophy in my early 20s. And I discovered how challenging it is to travel with disability, but also just how transformative travel can be on your life and your mindset. So I made it my mission to transform the lives of disabled people through travel. And I think the ultimate vision is to create a world whereby anybody, regardless of their disability, can travel and explore the wonderful world we live in. And I will never stop fighting until we get to that position, never stop fighting until anybody can see, because we as disabled people deserve the best, and we should never be excluded from travel.
Well, you've got the allies there who will fight alongside you. Anna?
Yeah, I think really it's for our disabled passengers to have the same, if not a very, very similar experience to our non-disabled passengers. They should be getting out of the airport just as quickly. They should be able to enjoy all of the same features and experiences, and booking their travel, deciding whatever assistance they are going to need or whatever, should be just the same as deciding whatever lounge they're going to sit in or what hotel they're going to stay in. It should be something that comes simple to everyone, regardless of disability or indeed anything else, really.
Okay, thank you. And Marina?
it'd be self-service, so the ability to book your holiday from the moment you start planning to the moment you go on your own online if you want to. And on the other side of that, the ability to speak to someone who's an expert, either on the phone or face-to-face. And the ease of the experience and the certainty of the experience. You will get the perfect holiday and everything will be okay. That'll be the ultimate vision.
Certainty of experience, Emma.
The ultimate vision, for me, it's one where my access needs are met as a disabled person. I'm not reduced down to medical labels, codes. I'm far more than an SVAN, which is my airline code for service animal. I'm a wife, a mum, a colleague, a friend, a partner. We are much more than our medical labels and codes, and that is my ultimate vision, where I can go, travel, have my needs met, have that airport experience, and not be reduced down to labels or codes.
Absolutely, a service which retains the dignity of every person.
Absolutely.
Last word, Lucy.
Yeah, and a service where, you know, I ditto to all of my fellow people on this stage. I agree, I want to be seen as a person, not a guide dog user first and foremost. I think, for me, if people have an open mind, often when you lack that confidence as a disabled person is when you've had an interaction with a staff member who doesn't necessarily, you know, get you or treat you in a certain way that you don't want to be treated. So, you know, it's about feeling confident and lessening those experiences by putting more of us around the table with lived experience.
I don't know what you feel. I feel it's a case of onwards and upwards for us. There's lots of good ideas, lots of good passion. I'd like to thank, on your behalf, the panel. I wonder if we could do that. So thank you very much, panel, for joining us. I'd like to thank the signer for managing to keep pace for us so well. Thank you for your time and attention. The speakers will be around off stage if you've got any questions for them, but for now, all that remains is for me to wish you a good afternoon, and I hope that you enjoy the rest of Naidex. Thank you very much.